Had a bit of a weird day, but that always makes for a good AMA. So
Right.
How's your trip, man? Oh, fucking hell, this guy.
it was
Yeah.
good. It was good. We're going after team fight tactics, and we might have to make rules. Bit of a tricky question because you've thrown out. There's no answer I can give you to say, and that's how the third world countries like Philippines will be able to jump in and play, even if they don't have a desktop.
Is something like that going to be possible in Illuvium?
No comment at this stage.
No comment.
There is a little bit more to it, but I'd be leaking too much.
Hey,
So
this is Nick. Welcome back to GameFi Plays. As you can see, I have Kieran here. I don't think he needs too much of a introduction. But if you are new to this channel, if you're not familiar, he is one of the three co-founders of Illuvium, and he's here today to talk to me a little bit about Illuvium, and really the side that I'm interested in is the investment and business side of things. So we're going to be talking about that. But Kieran, thanks for coming on the channel, and how you doing?
good, Nick. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I've been looking forward to this. We had it scheduled last week, and then something came up, so we had to push it a week. But now I'm even more prepared for it.
Awesome. And you've got another show with another dude, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he goes by Ramfi on Twitter.
Oh yeah. I know
Yeah,
Ramsey.
he writes a lot of articles. Yeah, we're calling it the Illuvium Rundown. We did
Yeah.
4 episodes so far. Yeah, no one's really doing that in this space. I see that in crypto and other space with like the rundown on the side. You spend 5 minutes talking about a topic. So we figured we'd give it a try. We found out we live literally 15 minutes from each other, which is pretty crazy considering like
Oh,
how
I
big this
thought you'd
world is.
photoshopped that in. But
No.
yeah,
We literally live that close.
yeah, crazy. Well, kudos to you. I've watched maybe 4 YouTube videos in my entire life, and that was one of them. So
Yeah,
yeah, nice. Yeah,
awesome.
seriously.
Yeah. We're rolling with it right now. We're doing it every other week. But if things pick up and it keeps doing well, we might try to do it more often than that.
Nice one.
Yeah, awesome. Um, so I made these nice little things that pop up down here so everyone can see. Um, so anyone familiar with my channel, I'm really into the investment and business side. Obviously, I'm into the game itself. I just think, putting the two together. I always say, what's that saying? Like, do something you love, and then you never have to work a day in your life. So I'm trying to make a business out of something that I think is going to be amazing, which is Illuvium. So a lot of the questions I want to ask today, we're going to be talking about the economics of the ecosystem, economic ecosystem, ILVZero as the financial hub, scholarships and lending, esports, and more. So, actually, the first thing I wanted to do, I wanted to see how many questions I can get into this whole interview. But I just want to run through them real quick, and I figured you could give some quick answers. Uh, Over, under, before, after, more or less, or however you feel like answering them. I just want to see how quick we can get through it, and then we'll get into some of the other questions. All right.
No worries.
All right. So open beta, March 2022.
March 2022.
Oh, March
Or
2023. Yeah, March 2023.
I was like, are we going? You have a time machine over there that I don't know
No,
about, or what are we doing here? Yeah,
before or
20.
after.
Look, we don't give dates, but
Oh yeah,
that's
that's why I wasn't asking for anything specific.
yeah, that's I guess loosely something that we're targeting. Could be well before then, could be after then. The council might step in and say, go open beta for one of our games, like
Yeah,
Illuvium Arena with PvP. I think people are going to be knocking down the doors if we can get that out, around about the end of the year or super early next year. I think it's going to be hard to keep people contained when we have such a good product that can compete with the mainstream.
yeah.
Could be that goes first and then the overworld comes after, or there's some type of version that has yield or whatever. Who knows what's going to happen, man?
All right. Yeah. So for these quick, feel free to just pass or answer them quick because there are more important questions I want to get to. I just want to
No worries.
run through a bunch of these. 200,000 active weekly players in Illuvium 1 year from now.
I think definitely possible. If it wasn't, I would be severely disappointed.
By the end of 2025, 5 Illuvium titles.
Depends what the council asks us to build next. If it's smaller games like the cartoon racer and like the tower defense games, dungeon crawler, then yes. If the next one is, hey, build a MOBA, maybe not.
Okay. The second land sale, June 2023.
No idea. It all depends on the demand of the main game. If we hit the player numbers, I think the council will be saying absolutely we have to sell some more land, just purely because it's such a hot commodity.
All right. The tier 5 land sale for those first 2 plots, same timeline, June 2023.
Oh, it'll be before then.
Before
then, I'm almost 100% certain on that.
Plots of land in ILVZero that you're going to play. 1. More or less than 1.
I'm not big on the ILVZero game, to be honest. I'm going to either give away all of that land over the next sort of 12 months, or I'm going to give a portion to like a land manager, and they can sort it out.
Awesome. All right. So you're not going to play any yourself? You're not even going to give it a try?
Look, we've got a lot of plans to build games that are nostalgic to myself and my other brothers.
Yep.
I don't think any of us, like Johnny was the big advocate of the idle clicker. We played SimCity and Sim Towers a lot, and to be honest, I remember you'd get like the disease and stuff in your building, and you'd be like, oh my god, all the rodents and stuff are coming in, and I'm losing our patrons and whatever. And so like I did play a little bit of that game, but there's way better games out there that I'm more into. But it has such a critical role in the economy that you can't not have it. It's just that I won't be playing it personally.
Yeah. I think I'm really looking forward to being able to play it at work, when the boss isn't looking. AMAs you're going to have in 2023, 100.
At least
100?
The AMAs are like, they're very powerful, right? And they're time consuming, they're tiring. You got to answer so many different questions. You're on the spot all the time. Some of the days I've been doing like 4 or 5 in a single day. But the difference, the good thing is, they don't cost anything apart from my time, and we've got a lot to showcase, right? Like we've got a lot to educate people on across the entire ecosystem. For me personally, I used to do a hell of a lot of Discord discourse, if you will. I would go in and I would chat to everyone, and I would be very, very active. It's much easier for me to get things out on things like town halls, which we've got later tonight, and then AMAs. And all it takes is one of your subscribers to be a whale, or even a decent crypto holder, and they don't know about what Illuvium is. They see one of these and they go, shit, these guys are building something of real substance. I'm going in. And we saw that with the first bunch of AMAs that I did. I think it was like 12 months ago. I did a tour of AMAs, and so we're gearing up for a big quarter, and so I think it's fitting to do a whole bunch of AMAs like I am now, and next year, we're certainly going to double down on that strategy.
I'm going to go through just a couple more of these that I had here. Illuvium's first movie, end of 2024.
Probably not. That movies take a long time to build. I don't know. I don't know enough about the industry yet. You're probably best to ask Grant that question.
All right. Yeah, I'll have to try to get him on an AMA. All right. Let's see. I'm going to move on to the questions I really wanted to get to. So, before Illuvium, obviously you were in crypto. Your older brother is the founder of Synthetics. So I just want to know, and I know you were involved in DeFi and stuff like that. What was your history in crypto before Illuvium? Before, like, we've all heard the story how Illuvium got started, but what were you doing before then?
Being a mega degen. So that same brother, he was very adamant that I needed to get back into crypto. So, I mean, back in 2016, I was trading ETH. I thought I'd missed the boat on Bitcoin. I think it was trading at like, I don't know, 200 or 300 bucks. And I was like, well, that ship sailed. And so I was looking for different tokens that I could go into. I went into like Ethereum, Economy, a couple of other ones that, real degen tokens. And I mean, ETH back then was considered a degen token. It was very much an altcoin. And, but before that, how I got to Ethereum at that stage was through, we started, Kane and I was working for a company that Kane started called Blue Shift, and I was the sales and marketing director. And it was my job to basically, it's this platform that sits in newsagents. Newsagent is basically like, think of it like a service station or whatever. And so there's thousands of them in Australia. And we had this platform, and it was my job to sign up partners to this digital platform. And one of them was a Bitcoin company called Buy a Bitcoin. And they were pitching us on using our platform. And essentially what it did was you could go in, hand over 500 bucks, and then we would send you, or not we would facilitate the transaction for Buy a Bitcoin to send you that Bitcoin digitally through the platform. And then the news agent would, take the monies and end up doing the accounting, whatever. And then we would eventually get it back to that company, and we would take a small clip on that. And it was really interesting watching it, because when I initially went to the board and pitched them on these guys, we had things called a minimum guarantee, which is just some bullshit that I made up to basically say, if you want to use our platform, you need to guarantee us this amount of revenue based off the fee. And at that stage, we're very, very early, and we came up with this thing where they committed to it. And 6 months later, this bull run, I think it's the second Bitcoin bull run that started. They started, everyone was trying to buy Bitcoin, and no one had any idea how to do it. And we just saw this huge run up in Bitcoin. I think it hit like 3,000 or 4,000. And all of a sudden, they were blasting past these minimum guarantees. And that put it more on Kane's radar, put it more on my radar. And then, I guess the rest is history.
Awesome. Now, how did that history play into like the tokenomics of ILV? So obviously DeFi played a role in the tokenomics for ILV.
Yeah, 100%. So I went into probably like 50 or 60 different tokens, and all of them had crazy tokenomics back then. Everyone was experimenting with it. It was okay to have a token for 2 months. That wasn't the most insane thing in the world. It was just what it was, right? It was yield farming season, and I had a lot of, I was spending probably 16 to 20 hours a day on just investing and, researching these protocols before I would go into them to see, is this system viable? Is it going to make it? What's the longevity of it? And sustainability was a huge, lever for me to go, okay, is this actually going to be a good investment? Aaron, being as crazy smart as he is, and understanding monetary systems just purely from an economics background, was really good at vetting some of these crazy ideas that I would come back with. And we had so many different ideas to start off with, and we just started just honing it. And the tokenomics were probably built between Kane, Aaron, myself, and maybe a sprinkling of other people giving advice over like a 3-4 month period where we were like, okay, now we're happy with this, let's write it in. And obviously several novel mechanisms came out of that, revenue distributions being one of the biggest ones. We don't know 100%. I went back and looked at a token that I went into very, very early on that was doing a similar model to revenue distributions.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that's how that came about or how we refined it or whatever. Like, it doesn't even matter. Like, to Aaron and I, this shit is just, we're building a fun game, and however it came about, it just did. But yeah, there was a whole bunch of input from everyone to really hone in on tokenomics. And at the heart of it was, how do we make the economy sustainable? And that's why you see, people saying that these are some of the best tokenomics that are in GameFi, because we were really diligent about, what we put in and what we took out.
Yeah, I definitely I saw the first Illuvium trailer back in whatever it was, spring of 2021, or so that hooked me. But what really got me to realize that this is not just like any of these other crypto projects was like looking at the tokenomics. I was like, this looks like something that's sustainable and something that's going to do well. So I think it's great. I'm glad to be in the coin myself.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm just trying to get a better understanding of what defines success for you here. Like in Illuvium, are you looking at the coin price or Illuvium trending, like Google Trends or something like that? How do you know that you're doing a good job? You know what I'm saying?
For me personally,
Yeah. Like what's your goal?
I want to be the largest studio on earth, and I don't think I want us to be the largest studio on earth. And I excluding obviously your Microsofts and PlayStation and Sony, their stock price is incorporating a hell of a lot of other elements and whatever. But we want to beat Blizzard. We want to be that number one studio in the world, and it's a pretty crazy vision to have. The reason why I think we can do it is two things. First one is the way that we're setting up our studio is very unique in that we only hire experts. And you go into and we've got to stick to this. We've got to be very, very strict and stay on this course, because it's how we're able to deliver a beta that has had 15-16 months of actual work on it, and that's while scaling the team. So like, started off with 20 people, 30 people, 40 people, 50 people. So you're not getting that whole 150 people working in that 15-month period. That's what I think the Netflix show is going to be, the fastest AAA game ever built, and or something to that tune. And it's because we've gone with this model of only hiring experts. Like, not saying being a junior is bad or a mid-level developer or artist is bad. We just don't have room for it in our studio.
Yeah.
And
So you don't have time to teach someone how to do it. You want them to come in ready to go.
No, and the reason is, we want to take advantage of this first mover advantage that we have, and it's definitely there. We know, there's a lot of other projects out there that'll promise AAA games, and we're one of the only ones that is really putting out a game with this quality of gameplay, this quality of graphics. Like, once the arena gets PvP added to it, we're going after teamfight tactics, right? And we've already had the feedback that obviously, the graphics are better, but even things like the gameplay, which not many people know because they haven't seen it. They don't know what the plan of how these tournaments are going to work and how PvP is actually going to be facilitated. I'm a team fight tactics player, and I'm also very, very realistic with our own team. I'm not the dev, and so I'm the first person to sit here and go, look, it's not ready, it's not as good yet, but it will be. And so my point there is we are going to have a first mover advantage, not just over Web3. And this is the crux of it, right? We're going to have a massive advantage over Web2 studios that we think without a doubt will end up moving towards a blockchain model as soon as there are 4 or 5 games in different genres that are up to scratch with gameplay, graphics, like the immersion, the competitiveness, the streamability. As soon as you have all those things, this whole negative connotation of NFTs are bad, that will go out the window. No one will give a shit. Right now, it should exist because there's nothing good to play. Soon as that's gone, the power will be in the hands of the players and the gamers, and they're going to demand it from their traditional studios. Now, I have an inkling that they're building in stealth a bunch of different blockchain games. I've spoken to a few that are definitely doing this, but I think a lot more is being done under the surface than we know. And so I want to make that gap as big as possible. And that's those 2 reasons why I think we can genuinely, if we build out that 10, 15, 20-year vision, why I think we can actually take on Blizzard, and beat those guys.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to hear Fortnite's dropping NFTs right away when you guys want to be the first to get there. I'd say they're probably working behind the scenes. Anyone who understands this space, I think is moving towards it. It's what it's going to be in the future. So Illuvium is a DAO, but to what degree? And by that I mean, like, what does the DAO have a say in, and what does the token holders, what can they vote on, and what can they, like, it doesn't matter. Like, obviously, if someone wants to design an alluvial, like how Grant's designing an alluvial, as token holders, we don't really have a say in that. So how much of it do we have a say in?
This is the frustrating part about our governance. Yes, you do have a say in it, right? Like, now, if you wanted to put in a proposal, this is like, again, I'm like, why is there this weird thing where people think, oh, we can't do that? It's like people are shy to write proposals. Like, proposals are free. If you hold ILV even 0.000000001% of ILV, you can write a proposal and the council will have to vote on it. Now, it might be the stupidest thing in the world, and we might have to make rules, like maybe people are going to watch this and 8 trillion proposals are going to come through, but I guarantee you they won't, because I've said this 100 times. Anything can be voted on, right? Now, you might say, well, I can't vote on the proposal myself. And yes, that is true, but you get to vote in a delegate that you think, very similar to traditional governance models, where you're voting in the person who you want to lead. We have 5 leaders, right, that get to make decisions, but you also get to make proposals. It's not just the governors and whatever they get to write up these new things that the world should adapt or your country should adapt. It's literally anyone who's a citizen of Illuvium can contribute. So, and that that right now is an open slather. Maybe there's a governance proposal to say, hey, there needs to be some sort of a ruling, because now we're getting so many different proposals that it's ridiculous. That is completely up to the council as well. But, from my perspective, change the balance of the game. Tell us to make a dating simulator. Write a proposal that you want to add a new character, because Kieran's an idiot for not wanting spiders, and I don't give a shit what he doesn't like. Let's put a spider alluvial in, right? Like, anything is possible. So, yeah, like the degree is 100%.
All right, so that actually brings me to one of my questions further down here. I'm going to bring it up right now. So, if a third-party studio wanted to make a game within the Illuvium universe, how would that happen? And would it be, I wouldn't say as simple, but could it just be, say Blizzard wanted to make a game in the Illuvium universe? Could they write an IIP, and could we vote on Blizzard making a game in Illuvium? Or how would that work?
Yes, yes. So now look, it's a bit of a tricky question because you've thrown out, one of the strongest studios in the world. So yes, now typically I would say anyone can, right? Like any studio right now that's out there that wants to make a game for Illuvium can write an IIP, right? No one is stopping you. And now whether we say, based on our research internally, our tech team has done a deep dive and said, the format that they're running things on, the platforms that they use, the graphics capability of the team, the story writing ability, like all of these factors come into it, and it needs to be able to fit from our perspective. It will need to fit in, and what will happen is the proposal will come up. There'll be a whole bunch of community discourse where they say the team needs to do some research on this. This has some validity, and we would do that research. Would come back to the community and say this is where we're at, and then the council would say, based on what Illuvium's core team has come back with their research, this studio is not capable of building a game that fits into our AAA ecosystem, universe, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
If it's someone like a Blizzard, maybe it is a yes, right? Like maybe it genuinely, we come back and we say, I don't know why Blizzard wants to team up with their soon-to-be competitor, but let's do it, right? Like now we would go to the council and we would say it's possible. They can fit it into the law. They can build graphics quality, maybe as good as ours. And if so, if this passes, then yes, let them start building, and we would fit it into the ecosystem.
Yeah, I just think back to like Pokemon. Obviously, they're not, all of their games are not interoperable, but they have different companies building out different Pokemon games, and I think that's just helped them expand. Like if you had 10 third-party studios building Illuvium games, that's just going to reach more people quicker.
It's just it gets very, very hard when you're talking about being able to integrate it into the blockchain, integrate it into our story, integrate it into our, with the same level of graphics. Like we were going to build a game that in ILVZero that wasn't up to scratch to what we normally would in terms of the graphics, right? And then Grant said, no, we need to upscale these and make it AAA, right? Like we don't want that situation to happen. And as you know, we've already got a huge roadmap in front of us. So we can't get into a situation where it's like, hey, we're over here and we're halfway through building, but now we can't get the graphics up to your same quality. Can you send over 40 artists and derail the core Illuvium products, right? So I'm talking mainly now. Maybe in 5 to 10 years that changes, and we've built up a core team. Maybe we have a special ops team that goes in and works with that other studio and helps them build out, and it comes with 10 artists, 10 devs, 2 story writers. I don't know, right? Like it's a cool idea. We've obviously spoken about it, but I think it's too early in the piece right now.
Okay. All right. So I want to know how like Illuvium plans to balance the economy from both a Web 2 perspective and a Web 3 perspective. Because the reason, what I'm thinking is really when it comes to cost and asset prices, like as somebody in Web 3, I want, when I catch a ram fire, I want that to be worth a lot of money. But somebody in Web 2 who just wants to be competitive and doesn't care about the money, doesn't want to spend $1,000 on a ram fee. So they want cost down. They want it to be cheaper to play. So how do you balance that out?
So it's essentially it's a real world economy, right? So as long as we start off as long as the barrier to entry is equal and balanced, then and I say that in when the overworld opens up, there's no way for you to go and pay to get a ramfire, right? Like you literally have to go and capture it. Now,
Yeah.
someone is going to value in the real world your time. It's not going to be the publisher. It's not us. We're not putting a price tag on a ramfire if you catch it. It's literally, well, it took I had to start off with my tier zeros. I had to grind through that. Once I did that, I got up to a stage where I could travel to a tier one place, a region, and that cost me a little bit of fuel, which in turn is ETH. And then I had to go and get 10 shards. I used 9 on it, and they all failed. And I finally captured one with the last shard that I had. I'm factoring that into my pricing, and then I'm factoring in the really key element, which is your time. Right now,
Yeah.
if that took you 10 years to find the Ramfire, which it won't, obviously there'll be new sets out, but let's say it took you 12 months to get it and you finally got it, and you're the only person in the world that has that because, it was 5,000 hours of gameplay, you're going to go, okay, well, I used 5,000 shards. I used 100. I had to travel to 100 different regions in different times. There's only 7, but you know what I mean there.
Yeah.
And I spent 5,000 hours, right? Like all of that equals a price tag of X. But then you might sit there, and because it's not just a fixed price tag, if no one wants to pay for that because in set one the Ramfire isn't that valuable, then you're going to sit there and go, okay, well, I listed it at 10 grand because I thought it was priceless and whatever, and then I'm now putting it at 9 grand, 8 grand, 7 grand, and maybe no one buys it, right? And then all of a sudden set 2 comes out and there's hardly any fire alluvials, and Ramfire, then because it's double fire, it becomes ridiculously valuable, and then you're like pulling your price of 7K, and you're like, fuck it, now I'm going to put it at 15K because I think it's got a lot more value in this set, and there's going to be way more people that want to get it, and so it's a very hard question to answer in terms of. I don't. It's being a real world market. There's no answer I can give you to say what the price of things are going to be, but how we combat that is we give you 35 alluvials that are literally free to collect. You can go and play them in the arena. You can experience it. It's completely up to you how much you want to spend or not spend in our game. And yeah, that's how we sort of balance out the economy, plus the 3 or 4 different mechanisms that we have to keep the assets valuable over time, which even the tier zeros might become more valuable in set 5, right? And who knows, right? Like there's so many variables there that which is what makes it exciting, right? So
Yeah.
that's, I guess, a long-winded answer, but yeah, that's what we're doing.
And do you have any idea of what the cost to say travel would be? Like, is it going to be low enough where it's not going to deter people away from the game?
So that's how so in terms of like barriers to entry, right? Like
Yeah.
they're going to be low, right? Like it's not going to be $300 for you to capture your first alluvial, right? We're talking
Yeah.
micro transactions. It might be as low as $1, right? Like the 2 economists that we have, they're working on that at the moment, and we've seen a whole bunch of models. But the key factor there is keeping that barrier to entry very, very low and letting the price of assets slowly appreciate over time, utilizing all of those things that I just said, plus things like burning of NFTs, making things harder to catch over time, randomizing of stats so you have some better than others, and then discontinuing sets as well,
Yep.
all factors into the appreciation of assets, not the depreciation of assets.
All right. So that kind of brings me into this next question I have. Do people from like third world countries, like say the Philippines, like how do they fit into Illuvium? Like say they don't have a computer because a lot of them, just play mobile games right now, or they don't have money to do anything. I know there is the free to play version, but I mean, do they have a place in Illuvium?
They do. So we realized very early on that we need to offer a mobile option for players, right? Like there just has to be. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Illuvium Overworld can go on mobile for the next like 2 or 3 years. It's just too large. It's a very, very big game, and there's just too many elements. There's too many regions. There's too many things that you can do. It's just not going to be possible for quite some time. However, playing Arena, where you can rent alluvials, there'll be a number of different options that you can go to, and you don't. Some of these options you won't need to put up any money, and it will be like a honesty system where they're checking your wallet, and based on your activity and whatever, they'll give you a certain amount to loan out, and you can start playing on mobile once we port it over. Now, we've already started that process with an outsource company down on. We're not experts on porting from Mac and PC to mobile. These guys are. And, we've got a pretty aggressive date for it next year, but, who knows? We don't have a confirmed date, so I'm not going to say anything, but it is definitely on our radar. And that's how the sort of the third world countries like Philippines and a bunch of South American countries, which are a huge audience for us, will be able to jump in and play, even if they don't have a desktop.
All right. So building off of that, scholarships, what we know it as. I've actually started using the word sponsorship because I think that fits a little better. Um, how do you feel about that in Illuvium, especially knowing that people who don't have computers won't be able to catch their own alluvials, at least for a little while. How do you feel about like lending um, to some of these people
Lending,
in like
yeah, lending I'm okay with, right? Like having an honesty system that this, as you put it, a trustless solution where as long as the gamer does the right thing, or the investor, whatever you want to call these people, as long as there's an option for them where you've got to pay back the principal at some sort of an interest rate to you, but you're not locked into a scholarship where it's like, okay, we own you for the next 12 months and you're going to give us 70% of the profits and we take 30%. We don't think that is conducive to fun gaming, right? That's a
yeah
job. And that's not what a scholarship really comes down to. It's literally I don't know. It's scholarship is, hey, we're going to give you this thing for free and we want you to learn, and
yeah
you're not paying for anything. Whereas this is like, no, this is a job and we're just
yeah
taking a percentage of your profits. Whereas we want to give that power back to that gamer and say, hey, yeah, this is going to cost you a little bit of your profit. It's going to
mhm,
be, much, much less. And then once you can stand on your own 2 feet, you're not locked into some contract or whatever. And you can say, okay, now I've earned X amount. I'm going to pay back those alluvials and I'm going to go on my merry way and buy my own. And then who knows, you might find a ram fire. and,
yeah.
you know,
So that's more of my vision of it, and why I think of it. I like to call it more sponsorship at this point. Is I think of if I can give someone who maybe can't afford it the ability to travel and have some shards to catch some better alluvials, and we could work out an agreement so they take some, I take some, until they build it up themselves where they can play their own game, and then just start the cycle of selling a couple of alluvials, buying some shards, and get going basically for free. If they don't have the means to start it up themselves. So that's kind of the
It's
idea of
just,
I think of it as.
yeah, which is exactly what Axie and Pegasus and all of those crazy games back a year ago used to do. And I don't know, you're going to get 2 million requests from people, and you're not going to have enough time to do it and respond to everyone, and you're going to have people, essentially begging for these scholarships because or sponsorships, whatever word you want to, hide behind this whole business structure, which it
Yeah.
is, right? You're
Yeah.
starting a business. I would rather say, here's a platform. You don't even know who you're renting it from, right? It's
Yeah.
a system where you yourself lend the assets to a protocol which is fully decentralized, and people can come up and say, I need a Ramfire, I need a Atlas, I need a Squiz, whatever it might be, and it's got an interest rate attached to that, and you just borrow it, right? Like
Yeah.
the bank, when you go and I don't know. Yeah, it just seems like a much more scalable system than having these singular guilds and whales and whatever that are profiteering off of these people that are just looking to play a game. I don't know. It just rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah. Understandable. Um, but just one last question on that: would it be possible? Like, so I know you're familiar with Axie and Fancy Birds. So Fancy Birds has the in-game lending system, but something like Axie is kind of done more manually. You make an extra account, and you can link that account to a username and password, and then they can log in with the username and password and play without access to the wallet. Is something like that going to be possible in Illuvium?
No comment at this stage.
No comment. Oh, I really want to know the answer to that question. We'll find out eventually, I guess, right?
You will. You will.
All right. So we'll move on. So you've said Illuvium Land is the financial hub of Illuvium. Can you just explain that a little bit?
I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory in terms of the fuel that is generated, the way for people to earn money across the entire ecosystem is for you to be supplying that fuel to the players, right? Like all of our games will require fuel, and so if you're looking to earn money outside of the revenue distributions, then it's going to always be tied back to those land parcels, the potentially 100,000 that are out there. There's a little bit more to it, but I'd be leaking too much. So there's more of an interactive sort of idea that we have for the land and what I mean by the financial hub. And so I think there was even a concept art that got leaked, which had a little bit of info on that as well. But it sort of ties into the lore as well. So I don't want to go into that too far.
Okay. So building off of the land, um, how are you going to protect like the landowners like investment, like land inflation? Like when is it going to be decided when the next land sale happens? Because essentially that would cut the returns in half when we get to the second land sale, right? Because you're doubling the plots of land. So when does that happen, or how is that decided?
So this is the cool thing about our governance structure, right? I called this out maybe, I don't know, I don't even know when we did the land sale, 6 months ago or whatever. And I sort of was like, hey, we do have 80,000 more plots to go out, but it's not really our decision of when that goes down. And so from my perspective, it'll need to be voted on, right? Like, and that's why I've said to people, it could only be 20,000 plots of land forever, right? Which
Yeah.
would definitely protect their investment. But I think there needs to be sort of an equilibrium that we reach where the community is saying, okay, we now have X amount of players that are generating X amount of revenue. We now think it would be in the best interest of the protocol, which is what all of these IIPs and governance decisions should be. And that would mean, where the landowners are earning too much, we can make more for our investors if we went and sold another 20,000 plots. But at the same time, it's not going to frustrate and deflate the value of land to a point where it's like, well, now I don't even want the land, right? Because then we're going to have a situation where everyone sells it and it's going to affect future sales. So again, it's a very dynamic decision that needs to be made, and it's not one that the core team will make. It's the council will make that decision. Rugged. He's gone to sell all his land.
As you can see, I did get rugged, unfortunately. My Wi-Fi just gave out. So that is the bad news. The good news is that Kieran said he would come back on with me in a couple days to finish up this interview. I still have a few more really important questions I wanted to ask him. So make sure you're subscribed to this channel and look out for that video coming out real soon.
All right, man. I'll speak to you after the weekend. Have a good Saturday, Sunday.
All right. I will. You too.
Cheers,
Thanks.
man. Bye.
All right.